Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this cybersecurity webinar. We will be waiting for 1 or 2 more minutes a bit for people to join up, and we will be starting soon. Yes, more participants joining right now, so let's give them a minute. Okay, we're currently at 30 participants. I believe we could start. So, good morning again. My name is Jason Schutis. I'm the project manager on behalf of ICCS for the Cityscape project. So we will begin today's webinar with an introduction by Dr. Angelos Amditis, the Research and Development Director of ICCS and TUA, and the coordinator of Cityscape. So, Dr. Amditis, welcome. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning to everyone, dear colleagues, dear all. Welcome to the joint cybersecurity webinar organized by ICCS and the Cityscape project. It's a great pleasure for me to open this webinar today and be part of this promising conversation on cybersecurity issues. We have colleagues and researchers connected from different countries today, and hopefully a lively audience that I'm hoping to see engaged in the discussion that will follow later on. Thank you all for being with us. Today's webinar brings together 6 European Horizon 2020 projects that work on cybersecurity in the critical sectors, I would say, of transport, health, supply chain, and SMEs. These are all sectors that have become increasingly dependent on digital technologies to run their core businesses, realizing enormous opportunities, but also challenges. As our cities and societies become increasingly interconnected, reliant on information and IoT technologies, powered by data and governed by smart systems, cybersecurity is increasingly becoming a top concern, as we all understand. Especially following the explosion of cyber attacks that we have been witnessing the last few years, the European community has realized that a stronger response is needed in order to address cyber risk. As the boundaries between physical and digital activities are constantly being blurred, and digital systems can control also physical outcomes, cyber attacks are becoming more harmful and affect a wider spectrum of actors, including governments, of course, users, services, citizens, infrastructures, systems, and processes. For this reason, our response should be formed according to a holistic, integrated approach. Effective cybersecurity must be deeply and widely collaborative. So having realized that the transition to an open and secure world requires collaboration and coordinated activities, today we join our forces to share perspectives, exchange knowledge, research outcomes, and expertise. So we have invited representatives of 6 different research projects to talk about the challenges specific for every sector I mentioned before, but also about the commonalities that underlie our research work. So in the first part of today's webinar, we will be introduced to the objectives of each of these participating projects, namely Cityscape, Hire, Puzzle, Sentinel, Secant, and Trapeze. And these projects were selected on the basis that they produce a comprehensive picture of the issues that research is facing in an array of different sectors and domains. Jason from ICCS, that also started our workshop today, will say a few words on the Cityscape, a project that seeks to address the challenges created by the increasing complexity of the transportation domain's cyber threat landscape, while in the health sector, Hire has tried to increase the protection of the health sector, focusing especially on electronic medical devices. We will hear about the developments there from Herve Dibar, the project coordinator for IMT. Jana Komatovic, communication manager from the VOICT, will present Puzzle, an ambitious project set to design and implement state-of-the-art cybersecurity, privacy, and data protection management framework. Increasing the cyber preparedness of SMEs to cyber attacks has been, on the other hand, one of the key objectives for Sentinel project that will be presented today by Cyranous Arkarmazian, member of the project coordination team from ITML. Trapeze, in addition to that, a project that will empower citizens with the necessary tools and know-how to manage their security and privacy, will be presented by Alexander Vasinenko, a project manager from TenForce. Last but not least, Monica Caballero, project manager, and Dimitris Caballeros, scientific manager from Intra, will introduce us to the work of Secant, a project that contributes to securing the modern data-driven ecosystem populated by internet-connected devices and shared databases by facilitating the collection, analysis, and sharing of cyber threat intelligence among supply chain stakeholders and CARTs and CSIRTs. So as you see, a collection of different projects on different sectors with a lot of synergies, I would say, that all together are trying to address the cyber issues, the cyber challenges that we have in critical sectors of our society and our economy. So following these short presentations and a lunch break, we will move to part 2. Jason will moderate the discussion on the cybersecurity challenges and issues faced in all these different domains. Examples are transport, health, the SMEs, MEs, and all the different aspects that the different projects that we have together with us are addressing. Just a kind of summary of the main issues to be discussed in this second part will be GDPR as a perfect example of how challenging compliance and adoption can be at the end of the day. However, as we see cybersecurity compliance growing day by day, I would say, which is the impact we need to discuss a little bit together, which is the impact of GDPR on cybersecurity outcomes. It can be positive or negative in some cases, or even challenging, I would say. So it's one very interesting subject to address today. So we will investigate the concept of cybersecurity assurance, issues in standardization and security labeling contribution, and explore approaches on the NIS directive, which promises to improve cybersecurity risk management and introduce reporting obligations across sectors such as energy, transport, health, and digital infrastructure. On the research frontier, I would claim that those dialogues are enabling us to learn rapidly, constantly expand our competencies, and build collective capabilities. Building such strategic partnerships is key to growing our cyber capabilities at the end of the day. At a broader level, we need to include as many actors as possible in this conversation to ensure international security and stability in our systems. It is critical to realize that making our society secure is not a one-time event. It's a continuous battle which actors are fighting alone, but a process at the end of the day in which strategies are evolving as cyber threats evolve, and within an ecosystem of governments, local authorities, academia, research, the private sector, just to name some of the stakeholders involved in this discussion. Technology is only one part of the cybersecurity solution. And this is something that we are here to explore together. So I wish you a very fruitful discussion. And once again, I welcome you all in this webinar. Thank you. Back to you, Jason.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Amditis. Going on with our agenda today, we will be moving to presenting Cityscape as the first project on the agenda today. This is... Okay, I think you probably can see my screen. Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so starting with some general information, Cityscape is a cybersecurity related project that is, as already mentioned by Dr. Amditis, focusing on multimodal transport ecosystems. We received the funding of nearly 5 million euros. The total duration typically for an EU project is 3 years, and the consortium consists of 15 partners from 6 different European countries. Below you can see some of the links to our site, to our LinkedIn as well, and Twitter. So the main challenges, so Cityscape is working towards facing challenges that arise in the multimodal transport sector, namely those being the realization of truly interconnected transport systems, the need for global connected cybersecure systems, the fact that the mosaic of ICT services integrated over interconnected infrastructures, as above mentioned, makes ecosystems increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks. The fact that there is a constant growth on market share of personal handheld devices of users, and that in turn increases the system's attack surface. The fact that transport services related to other NIS directive areas such as energy and finance scale up relevant cybersecurity and security assurance challenges due to the attacks happening on either sector, and the need for collaboration between European and global cybersecurity authorities. That's a very brief summary. Following the challenges, the Cityscape objectives can be summarized as enhancing the cybersecurity technologies in the multimodal passenger transport ecosystem at the city level, taking into account user and data privacy concerns, introducing risk analysis tools to identify threats and their propagation mechanism, initially focusing on the transport infrastructure, but also extending to the other NIS directive critical sectors, mainly the studies around finance and some part on energy on the pilots that we perform. Improve the proactive approach of handling cybersecurity challenges and actively contributing to the predictability of threats in multimodal transport systems within the EU, but possibly scaling up to worldwide. And enhance end-user engagement towards the definition and provision of multimodal passenger transport requirements about digital security, privacy, and personal data protection. That is more materialized through training sessions as well. Following that, further strengthen the role of authorities like CERT and CSERT authorities by linking the system with their database and providing direct real-time informative notifications about cybersecurity incidents. This facilitates the collaborative investigation of certain incidents and is in line with the latest NIS directive. We are planning also to contribute significantly to multimodal transport standards and gain experimental evidence on the feasibility of security labeling in city-level multimodal transport. Showcase in the real-life pilots and validate the Cityscape solution efficiency, involving all the relevant entities and digital infrastructure of transport providers, passengers, under use cases of interest that are quite specific. More information will be provided a bit later on. And analyze and outreach finally the multimodal transport security market to help Cityscape have a reach on this market on an exploitation level. So in a nutshell, the Cityscape solution introduces an innovative risk analysis technique and orchestrates a number of software solutions to realize an interoperable toolkit that seamlessly integrates to any multimodal transport system, mainly currently researching the standards used in European cities, but probably scaled up worldwide later on. More specifically, the software toolkit will detect suspicious traffic data and identify persistent threats, evaluate an attacker's impact in both technical and financial terms, combine external knowledge and internally observed activities to enhance the predictability of zero-day attack, and instantiate a network overlay to circulate informative notifications to certain authorities and support their collaboration. This is a very high-level diagram of the tools that the toolkit consists of. Those tools are namely the IPS-IDS engine, the CM engine, the risk analysis and impact assessment engine, the financial impact assessment engine, and the collaborative security incident response platform and the collaborative threat investigation platform. Moreover, a number of training sessions take place, some of them addressing IT experts and others addressing non-experts / passengers or other end users. The IT experts are trained over the use of Cityscape tools and are updated on multimodal transport-related cyber threats, while the non-experts are mainly trained on privacy and cybersecurity awareness matters. So we mentioned the Cityscape pilots and the use cases. So the Cityscape project has 2 major pilot demonstration sites connected with specific use cases each. Starting with the first pilot, the Tallinn site, hosted by the Taltech University and City of Tallinn, is mainly focused on attacks that aim automated driving vehicles and their ecosystem. The main assets used were the university's ISE Auto, automated driving shuttles and their support systems. So the pilot demos were performed in the summer of 2022 and tested mainly attacks that affected the journey planning, the ticket validation systems, the real-time information on apps and informative boards, and the last mile extension transitioning, meaning from public bus to the university bus, and such. Moreover, we tested the effect of attacks on smart traffic lights that affected, in turn, the behavior of the shuttle on intersections, since it's automated. So the second pilot site is in Xenover. The character of the trials, the tests there is quite different. It mainly focuses on attacks on the application layer of the Xenover transport ecosystem. The pilot is ongoing and it will conclude in the next few months. The main focus of the demo is on attacks on the infomobility systems that affect waiting times, service scheduling, and notification sent to the passengers via the application of the local host, namely AMT. Moreover, the pilot has a special focus on the ticketing system and the attacks affecting the ticketing mobile app and the CityPass subscription. This is related also to the NIS directive. In both pilots, so yes, we have a number of use cases that observe the cascading effects that the cyber attack on a multimodal transport ecosystem can have on other NIS directive related sectors like finance, aka the ticketing system mainly, and energy, mainly the cost regarding falsified data and what that could bring up eventually. And moreover, the pilot demonstration greatly assists our partners leading the standardization efforts, those being ASI and CS Group with security labeling. We will have on our second session an extended discussion over this, and we are expecting to conclude those pilots by the end of spring 2023 and extract the valuable lessons that would be eventually depicted in the respective project deliverables. So this is the end of our presentation. On behalf of Cityscape, we would like to thank you and ask if there are any questions. Okay, I guess yes, mainly the discussion will take part on the second part.
There's one question from Monica.
Yes,
Please.
sorry, I didn't. I was so slow when raising the hand. Just as a simple question. It's all the engines and the toolkit that you are developing has a more analysis or assessment role, or it's also active? It was not clear. I mean, it's also address the response to the cyber attack.
It's
just informs
initially,
about the risk and the attack and.
Yes, so you mean if it's active, actually dealing with threats, but at the same time doing the analysis, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yes, this is it. So the two main modules that are mainly dealing with the attack is the IPS-IDS and the CM. They are blocking a number of attacks. One of them is mainly focusing on network-based attacks that can be detected, and the other is mainly a correlation engine. So it's more customized on the rules it uses depending on the asset being protected, and it is fully customizable as well. Those are the two first line of defense. So those entities have a feedback with certain CCERT authorities through the other modules, the collaborative modules. A possible feedback, I mean, we are one of our partners is actually a CCERT authority, and another one is a CCERT authority. So there is a connection with a network with those authorities as well. So when the feedback comes, either triggered by an attack happening to our own system under protection or to an interconnected on a European level system, then the rules are updated, especially on the IPS-IDS module. And it's quite self-updating, but also contributing to the total. However, we do have a post analysis as well. I mean, it is a live analysis of the risk and the financial impact, this is mainly for a company, for example, to understand how much money they could probably spend to increasing their cybersecurity and how much their assets could probably be in danger. But apart from the post-analysis, we have also a live system, yes, at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Let me check. Okay, yes, you can either use also the Q&A box, or also but it is fine. The session is being recorded as well, so I guess any way you want. Any other question maybe, or any clarification required? Okay. Let me move on. Sorry for that.
There's no other questions coming in, Jason, on the chat, so we could move on to Hervé probably.
Yeah. So probably you should share your screen. Okay. Yeah.
So, thank you very much for organizing this this seminar. So I'm here to present the HARE project. I'm the HARE coordinator, and I'm a professor in cybersecurity in a French institution. Very quickly, HARE is a research and innovation action. We're well into the third year of the project. We are, as the others, interested in the issue of cybersecurity for critical sectors, and our critical sector is healthcare. And so we have a number of partners all over Europe, and importantly, we have 5 healthcare-related organizations, including 3 hospitals. As you may remember, the project started right in the middle of the COVID crisis, and I can tell you that working with hospitals that become overwhelmed with COVID is difficult, and it has been an interesting project to run. So the vision of HARE is that we really want to cover all the aspects related to cybersecurity and privacy in a unified framework. And so we are interested in both the threat hunting aspects, meaning trying to deal with the attacks that target the IT infrastructure of healthcare organization. And this infrastructure is extremely complex, ranging from classic IT devices to huge machines such as IRM scanners, to very little devices such as blood measurement, and all of these meshed into strange ways. And the main purpose of it being communication, it's very hard to impose security rules there. And the second aspect is, of course, this infrastructure hosts data. There's a lot of very sensitive data, personal identification, financial data because of insurance, healthcare data, and all of this is problematic. And also, but the point is that not only is it problematic if it's accessed outside, there's also a question of being able to use it better. And in the end, what we want to do is work for the hospitals and the healthcare environments, so provide solutions to this. But we're also interested in taking a step back and providing tools for regulators so that they can help support the healthcare sector get better at cybersecurity. And if we look at the number of hospitals that have been compromised over the past 3 to 4 years, we can see, at least in France, there's typically 1 hospital per month that gets compromised due to a ransomware attack or something like that. So it's extremely frequent, and it's extremely problematic because it takes 6 months to a year for a hospital to fully recover from these kind of things. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the privacy aware framework and the blockchain logging that is associated to that. And the problem that we're trying to address here is that we want to control access to the data based on policies. And these policies can come from user desires. A patient may say, I'm okay with sharing my data with a physician, but I'm not okay with sharing my data for research purposes, for example. There's also regulations that are different in each country, and the hospital itself, who is collecting the data, needs to set its own policies. And so we need to understand and specify tools that will help with following the data, that will help with regulating access to this data. And in addition, we want to be able to audit that in order to make sure that whenever there's a problem, we can go back to the audit trail and understand, yes, the data access was granted, or no, and here were the conditions, and here's what went wrong. And these data access policies can be fairly complex. They can depend on intent. What is the purpose of the data access? They can depend on the category of the data. They can depend on the geography, on the user role, and so on and so forth. It's kind of an endless set of possibilities. So the context the concept that we have developed is a privacy-aware framework that creates a form of envelope around the data, and that serves as a policy decision and enforcement point. And typically, what happens is that the user, the person who wants to use the data, creates a query, and this query gets filtered against the policy. And according to the policy, the response that is given fits the requirements of the policy. So that, for example, we may not release an individual data, but we may release an aggregate data, an aggregate value over a set of data. For example, if we say we don't want to identify a person, but we're interested in the average or in the standard deviation of certain things. And so we create a form of data mesh using open source technologies. And there's a complex software stack that has been developed by IBM, and that is being supported and provided as open source. And as you can see, we're using modern technologies. Fabric is the IBM tool, and then we're using the open policy agents, Kubernetes, and Docker to develop all this framework. So how does it work in practice? So the hospital and IT maintainer will will install the basic tools, and so there's he deploys the software infrastructure. The data governance officer, the data protection officer, possibly the users define their own policies, and that configures the rules that will be applied to the data. So whenever a third-party data user comes to the privacy-aware framework using what we call a Fabric application, he will obtain the responses that are filtered by the policy file. How does it work in terms of implementation? The third-party data access uses an ingress gateway. The privacy-aware framework acts as a filter between filtering the request to the file server, which is the place where the medical data is hosted. When the file server returns the data to the privacy-aware framework, it does what the policy requires on the data, removing, redacting, aggregating, all sorts of mechanisms to process this data. And then at this time, we also log the data to a blockchain so that any request is ordered and kept, quote unquote, forever. And then the third party obtains the data. So how does the blockchain work? We're not so much interested in confidentiality, simply because the privacy-aware framework does the confidentiality work for us. If the data is subject to protection rules, whenever we log something, the data that is being logged is compliant with the regulations. However, we're interested in the strong integrity of the audit trail. And so we have a blockchain-based auditing mechanism where a user will come so the Kafka client sends the data, the audit data to a REST API, and it's logged into a Hyperledger blockchain network in order to create this audit trail. It tracks who has accessed what data over time and for what purpose. It's a tamper-proof, immutable record. We have audit isolation according to institutions, but we can also use it in a distributed fashion. For example, if a hospital has remote clinics, all of these using the naturally distributed blockchain infrastructure can log to the same blockchain. And we also use this timeline of events in a graphical console to present it to the end users. Yeah, I'm going to pass that. So the second aspect is protecting the infrastructure itself. And so to do that, we use, first of all, we've developed a machine learning-based anomaly detection algorithm. The idea is that anomaly detection has been around for a long time, but what we're interested here is finding mechanisms to detect compromised medical devices that provide data that is abnormal to the physician, so that we can detect when a device is compromised because it's sending abnormal data. The second aspect, quite naturally in terms of detection, is using a CM. The CM is tasked with detecting known attacks that happen in the infrastructure. One of the issues with medical environments is that they're very open. And so it's important that we detect even known threats very rapidly so that the people monitoring the infrastructure can react very, very quickly. Okay, these are so all of these technologies are integrated into what we call the HAIR agent and the HAIR client. So the HAIR agent is deployed into end user machines, and the HAIR client is typically monitoring the network, so that we have a view from the system and also from the network. And this provides a complete coverage of malicious activity that can happen in different settings. In some aspects, we can in some platforms we can install agents. In other platforms, we cannot. For example, when we have a medical device, which is essentially a computer with lots of sensors, these platforms are certified, so we cannot easily modify them and install additional software. So we need to rely on either network observation or sometimes network probing to detect anomalies and the presence of malicious software in there. All of this needs to be practically presented to operators. And so what we've designed is something like we call the RAMA score. RAMA stands for risk assessment for medical applications. It's actually more general than just medical. The point is that what we want to do is measure the security status of devices, of clinics, subgroups, hospitals as a whole, in order to provide the IT guys with simple action points, telling him, here's what you should do to improve your score in a relatively easy way. The score is computing using several components of HAIR, and there is an algorithm that allows us to get a consolidated value. So in more details, what we have, the inspiration of the RAMA score is based on CVSS, and the idea is that we want to measure the security status of an environment. The RAMA is constituted of two parties. One is the base score, something that measures the interesting vulnerability of your platform, and the temporal score, meaning that this is done measuring the malicious activity, how much attackers do you see, and what are they trying to do? So the first one is static, and so it only changes when an IT administrator does an action on the system. And the second one is dynamic in the sense that threats go independently without any control that you could have. And so the base score is normalized to 70. The temporal score is based to 30, is normalized to 30, and the global, the local RAMA is normalized over 100. And so there's a relatively complex computation scheme that allows us to provide the hospital administrator with information about the vulnerability of each of its platforms or environments. And so it enables him to prioritize treatment, both in a geographical sense, so which clinic or which area or which location should he address first, and also what kind of issue can he process that will improve his RAMA score. Of course, this gives a local view, and for the local RAMA, the point is that we inform the hospital IT administrator. We're also interested in informing the global community. And as you may know, there is this trend towards ISACs, so information sharing and analysis centers, where there is regulators need to have a sectoral view of all their constituency. And so the idea of the global RAMA is that it's an anonymized risk score for each hospital in a given that corresponds to a particular regulator. And so the idea is that based on this score, the regulatory body can issue directives to the whole sector, telling them, okay, we observe that all in all of you are vulnerable to a specific CVE, for example. So please fix this, and here are the instructions to do that. Or it could say there is a specific issue in this medical device. If you use this medical device, please do this. And the idea is that with an aggregate view, it gives a better information to the whole community. And again, there is an algorithm that helps in doing that. So comparing it to comparing the global with the local. The global, there's one score for a sectoral. The local, there's a score in each hospital, and you can also have multiple RAMA scores in the hospital. And all of this is organized in a relatively nice way. And going into the GUI, which I'm going to show next. I'm going to skip that. Okay. So the GUI is shown here. There are several screens. The idea is that what we want to do is on this side, on the right hand side, you have a view of the generic screen. So you have the generic scores of the hospital, and you have information about each of the locations that are present, that have been segmented into the hospital, such as, for example, here in this particular use case, each clinic, so gynecology, nephrology, pulmonology, things like that. I'm not a doctor, so I have no idea what these actually do. And then there is a more detailed view where you can see, for example, with respect to the machine learning, what kind of detection happened, and where and whether the event was treated. And finally, there is a more detailed view which allows you to inspect what happened with a specific device, and there's a temporal representation that indicates what kind of if the event was kind of normal, or if it was critical or severe, and how this evolves over time. And typically the idea is that the operator will see the result of his actions in this kind of screen. Thank you very much for listening. I'm now open to questions. Hopefully you may have some.
Yes, actually on the Q&A tab already too, so maybe.
Okay, so let me try to elaborate a little bit then on the challenge. So fundamentally, in a hospital, doctors, when they need to treat a patient, they rely on communicating with one another or communicating with other staff, such as the nurses. Let me give you an example. A doctor gives a treatment to a patient. Today, the nurse, when she has the cart with the medicine, the cart is computerized, and so there's a need of a transfer from the doctor's computer to the cart that will tell the nurse, here's the kind of medicine you should give to this patient, here's the quantity, here's the dosage, things like that. And this goes across services in the hospital. For example, you have a doctor that needs to have information about sends a patient to an analysis lab. The results need to come back. All of this is computerized. So it's very difficult to filter inside the organization. Plus, there's a culture of trust in these environments, which make it quite permeable to basic attack techniques. This makes it extremely challenging. There's also an additional trend towards putting healthcare in remote places. So the hospital remains the central place, but you put medical offices in villages. And so you rely, the medical offices rely on having easy communication to the hospital to provide care. And so all of this makes it extremely complicated to secure. And there's a second question about sharing of sensitive data in the public interest. So actually, it's a very good question. It's actually one of the use cases. In Norway, we are cooperating with a hospital which is caring about patients that are sick from diabetes, and there is also a national diabetes registry in Norway. And so what happens here is that the desired way of sharing the data is that the patient shares its data with the doctor so that the doctor can recommend treatment about diets, about insulin injections, about medicaments, about weight monitoring, this kind of thing. But the National Diabetes Authority is also interested in understanding how diabetes occurs in Norway to provide recommendations to the general population so that they don't become sick. The point here is that there's a need, there's a legitimate, even a legal need for data sharing between hospitals and the national registry. This happens manually, or this happens in undesired ways today. For example, the national registry has certified a number of glucose monitoring devices, some of them by American manufacturers. The way these devices work is that the patient has a device. He needs to upload an app in his smartphone. The smartphone will talk to the device, and the data will be uploaded to the cloud of the American provider of the device. And then the doctor in Norway goes to the cloud of the medical device manufacturers in the US to look at the data. And then some of the data goes back to the national registry. I'm not a DPO, but I think you can all imagine what is wrong with these kind of scenarios in terms of data protection. Plus, in terms of general healthcare, we're also giving away data that may be useful for us in Europe to design new treatments. So there are clearly issues with the way we manipulate data that need to be solved, and that's what we hope to do. So by providing this privacy-aware framework, so that people understand when they put data in there, for what purpose the data will be used, and they can specify what their acceptance or not. The blockchain is a bit different. The blockchain is really about auditing if it goes wrong. So, so that hospitals or regulators can come to a certain place and decide and understand if the data was shared in the intended way and trace back any issues. So the blockchain is really just, it doesn't host medical data per se. And upfront, we decided hosting data, medical data in the blockchain was a bad idea. So we only host metadata. I hope I've clarified the things. Any other questions? Okay, so I think back to the next speaker then.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can continue with puzzle now. There is a follow-up.
So healthcare data is proprietary. Yeah, that is true. So we have a general solution for fire records, and that is about standardized. When we want to get closer to certain devices, we have one example where we have a device that monitors an expectant mother for child delivery. And clearly, yes, there are proprietary protocols. There are even strange ways of connecting these devices to the main hospital IT. So yes, unfortunately, in some cases, it's not as easy to interject our tools as we would like.
I have a question regarding blockchain. So you use Hyperledger. Do you have a specific protocol? It's a permission, I understand. Do you use the protocol for participants to enter and to read the data, or it's completely open for everyone?
No, it's not open to everyone. It's only open. So we use a basic access control mechanism. Actually, you can also only access the blockchain through the privacy aware framework. And then so writing to the blockchain is controlled by the privacy aware framework. So you need to be authenticated to the path in order to do so. And export, it goes to the so the visibility of the log goes to the aggregator, and then to the second layer GUI. So again, it's read only on that direction.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I think the point of the blockchain is also that mostly that it's distributed. So when you have a distributed environment, such as nowadays hospitals are, or healthcare environments in general, it helps that everyone can log to the same blockchain.
Thank you. Clear.
Okay, I think we could move on with the presentation of puzzle. Thank you very much, Mr. Debar. So moving on with Jasna Komatovic.
Yes, hello, Justin. Yes, hello everyone. I hope that you can see my screen and it's a full screen.
Yes, yes.
Great, great. Hello everyone. My name is Jasna Komatovic and I am a communication and dissemination team member in Puzzle and marketing manager in Vojvodina ICT cluster, which is of course one of the consortium partners in the project. A brief overview of Puzzle. The project is set to design and implement state-of-the-art cybersecurity, privacy, and data protection management framework. The project started in September 2020. It lasts until the end of August this year. Of course, as many of the Horizon 2020 projects, it's a 3 years project. The project is going to provide monitoring and visualization tools, as well as a dashboard where information regarding sets of assets, vulnerabilities, identified threats and risks is going to be made available to end users. So we will help, or we will try to help SMEs and micro enterprises to monitor risks to their digital security, privacy, and data protection by analyzing the hardware and software assets within the SME's boundary. So selected as one of the most innovative new approaches in cybersecurity by the European Commission a few years ago. The project aims to strengthen cyber safety, also considering post-threat mitigation, revolving around optimal security policy recommendation, and filling an important security gap for many SMEs, but also citizens on post-threat mitigation. So through state-of-the-art technologies, including artificial intelligence, trust computing, and blockchain, SMEs and MEs will enhance their security and efficiently process information flows and online collaboration, knowledge sharing. So as an overview, as you can all see, we have summarized the most important parts in several points, such as development of an easy to onboard and easy to deploy cybersecurity services marketplace for enterprises, conceptualization and development of cyber threats and data modeling and risk assessment models, personalized cybersecurity functions per business, enhanced operational assurance and detection capabilities, automated orchestration of advanced security deployments, tools and mechanisms for continuous cyber warfare trainings, and cyber technology development. The Puzzle Consortium consists some of the strongest European players in cybersecurity and brings together multidisciplinary competences and resources from the academia, industry, and research communities. Puzzle comprises 13 partners representing research institutes, universities, technology providers, also infrastructure providers, industrial partners, including 8 SMEs and MEs from 8 European Commission member states, but also with unassociated countries. The mission, almost all of us know and are very aware that the cyber attacks and malicious online activity can cost companies everything, equally bigger and smaller. Protecting organizations is the paramount for the project. We will enable a new mode of security and verification for mixed critically services running at various levels in the overall SMEs and MEs business ecosystem stack. So to turn the business ecosystem into a real-time verified, governed by security enablers to safeguard correct state of all assets during the entire life cycle of operation, also attestation and or verification and threat intelligence data sharing. Motivation is based on challenges to give all European SMEs and MEs access to comprehensive security operation solutions that are appropriate to their circumstances, affordable to keep pace with escalating threats, and innovation in technology, but also in practice. The following value propositions are important for Puzzle. Develop a cybersecurity, privacy, and data protection management framework, facilitate the collection, processing, and exchange of data, and but also knowledge sharing among SMEs respecting cyber threats and vulnerabilities. to provide a set of network and edge security functional service, suggest optimal mitigation strategies and policies to support their enforcement, to increase cybersecurity situation awareness of SMEs and MEs through an innovative set of monitoring goals. Concept behind the technology is a flexible platform that runs a number of complementary security services for detection and analysis and feeds them with the appropriate context from a dynamic and evolving system. About the open call, puzzle validation contracts call, it's closed, and a short overview from my side about it because it's very important. Puzzle came up with a validation contracts concept. The aim is to provide SMEs and MEs who deal with cybersecurity, privacy, personal data protection, a set of tools and solutions or varied sophistication levels to allow them to benefit from the innovation and targeted solution that the puzzle marketplace offers, addressing their specific needs and available resources. So through the validation contracts or context or open call that we launched last year, the interested parties were invited to present their ideas on how the puzzle marketplace could complement the development activities of product or service they are already providing to their customers, to prove the applicability, usability, and value of the concepts, models, and most important, real-life conditions. In the open call, the project sought the use cases from IT-based and non-IT-based SMEs and MEs with the overall objective to evaluate the marketplace from two perspectives. From the end user perspective for SMEs in various verticals and domains, and validation from cybersecurity vendors and providers trying to extend and add their service that they are existing in the markets and to be used as an extra service. So the selection process was performed by an evaluation committee, but in order to guarantee a successful and smooth collaboration with the potential applicants, we proceed to an additional evaluation phase composed of individual interviews. Validation contracts will award selected applicants or beneficiaries a grant of 10,000 euros after a successful validation process. The contracts partners who successfully passed the selection process, who met the criteria, technical requirements, and focus themselves as innovation character and originality of the idea, challenges and relevance of the problem dealt with, knowledge of technical or related matters, feasibility and construction of demonstration, and of course, quality of the presentation. So execution of validation contracts activities is 10 months, and during that period, based or beside the integration, testing, etc., through a series of innovation workshops to be held with the participants in the contracts, the project will also deliver cybersecurity awareness trainings and share best practices for SMEs so that along technical improvements in their cybersecurity, companies are also be able to implement a better cybersecurity culture within their organizations. So we strive to work proactively in every aspects of the projects. The overall objective is to evaluate the puzzle marketplace from two perspectives, as I already mentioned, from the end user perspective for SMEs, also startups, I forgot to mention that, but also from cybersecurity providers who are trying to extend their services in the puzzle framework. So common objective for SMEs and cybersecurity vendors is to validate the overall puzzle marketplace and to put the project in the phase that can come up with a validation framework. From this perspective, Puzzle will be in a position to do user acceptance testing, independent from the predefined use cases or to the extent of the cybersecurity services that will be provided. So we still have a lot of work ahead of us, 8 more months, and the project is in a very good shape in this phase. Of course, more details about the technical aspects of the parties during the panel session, all information, details, technical blog posts or other activities, an overview of them are available on our website and also on social networks. So I'm at your disposal for questions, comments, any thoughts. I suppose Jason and Dikta, back to you again.
Okay, so if there are any questions, maybe phrased on the chat or...
I will be happy to answer them. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your presentation. We are to take a 15 minutes coffee break. I guess we could do the whole 15 minutes. So back, we are a bit ahead of time. So back at 11:15, 11:20, let's say, Central European time. Oh, okay.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Iranusa Karmazian. Just to share the screen as well. All right. So I guess you can see my screen now.
Yes, full screen.
All right. So okay. Hello again, everybody. Nice to meet you all online together with this joint cybersecurity webinar. I'm representing the Sentinel project from the coordination team from ITML, which is a company located in Greece. We're coordinating this project. So the outline of the project is that I will briefly present the Sentinel as a whole, its objectives, architecture, modules, plugins that we are developing in the project, some information about validation, use cases, and what are the offerings of Sentinel. So Sentinel at a glance, it is an European project. It has 13 partners. It's an innovation action with the maximum EU contribution for million. It have started in June 2021 with the duration 36 months. We are in the middle of our project, month 18. And are preparing ourselves for the review meeting. So before moving on, it's important to stress out what is the motivation of Sentinel. So we are motivated to help support SMEs. Because they need protection and they currently face challenges. So they have some based on several literature reports. They have a violation of individuals' privacy and rights. They have operation downtime or data losses, and of course they have GDPR fines. And in between, they face of challenges because of lack of awareness about personal data protection, cybersecurity, and how these two concepts are interconnected. And they lack of personal data protection, cybersecurity, or GDPR compliance due to mainly prices, commitment of resources, or complexities. And they are also, it's for them it's challenging to mitigate risks. They have challenges of monitoring and troubleshooting their IT assets. So the statement of Sentinel and what we try to do is that the project provides a complete privacy and cybersecurity data protection suite that enables especially small and medium enterprises to achieve business security and to save their both their and their customers' assets in an efficient and affordable manner. And three main sorry. It integrates security and privacy technologies into unified architectures. This is the first pillar, and the second is that with the project we want to educate SMEs on GDPR requirements, and this is the first most important part, and how to achieve this compliance. And the project itself tries to automate GDPR compliance and provision of recommendation for both cybersecurity and personal data protection. And also it provides tools and services to run real-time monitoring and treat the mitigation. As you can see, the project mainly focuses on GDPR compliance, but in the meanwhile, it tries to combine the compliance with also cybersecurity and to provide security as a whole for business sector. The key driver of the project is the GDPR Article 30, which is called the record of processing activities. What is this? It is a processing activity is a description of how an organization generally handles personal data, and it is an application for many companies. Of course, okay, depending on size and data types they handle. And Sentinel aims to help such entities to keep their record of processing activities in compliant with GDPR and also in an understandable manner. Okay, the objectives, we have 6 different distinguished objectives, and we try to accomplish all of them by the end of the project. So the first one is to develop and support an end-to-end digital privacy and personal data protection compliance framework together with the identity management system. To provide scientific and technological advances in SMEs and MEs, data protection compliance assessment, to provide tools and services that can help SMEs for enabling automated personal data protection compliance. Of course, we want to validate all the services and tools in real world settings, just to showcase that we really support SMEs, these entities, to automatically and easily first be educated and then be compliant with GDPR. The project also tried to consolidate international and European leaks, raise awareness, and ensure that the outcome of the project is well disseminated, and also boost the effectiveness of the EU data economy by proposing and offering a high DRL solution. And this is the very high level architecture of the project. We have distinguished the architecture in 4 main modules and also plugins. It is a very flexible architecture. The design is as from the perspective of plugins, we can integrate both partners technologies or open source technologies continuously within the duration of the project. So briefly about all the modules, especially of the Sentinel, it's of course it is the first one, My Sentinel, which is the Sentinel's visualization component and the primary dashboard. It aggregates data from all front-end components and provides visual insights into SMEs progress towards achieving their cybersecurity or personal data protection goals. The second module, which is the self-assessment, it provides centralized storage and retrieval services for all SME data. Its core organization data, personal data, processing activities, everything is stored in a profile service. It performs eligibility checks and enables related workflows, as well as it provides plugins which conducts a self-assessment capability and share the common Sentinel data model. The core is the common service, which is the centralized source for the Sentinel OTM classification, software tools, plugins. It also contains, stores the awareness, education, and training material. The basic component of this module is the recommendation engine, which generates a list of recommended OTMs, plugins, and trainings, and recommends to these SMEs in order to start executing this recommendation and becoming GDPR compliant. And also the policy drafting, another component of this module, which generates human readable policy drafts based on this recommendation. And implements and enforce the Sentinel reusable policy template. Finally, the last module is the observatory, which is actually a knowledge-based. Again, it provides a huge storage of information and also gives access to information collected from external open and data shared platforms. And information exchange is that every user can continuously monitor and collect information from open security data sharing platforms. Regarding the Sentinel validation and these use cases, we want to validate all our offerings and results in real-world settings by two distinct enterprises in the fields of geometric and social care. The first use case is it's a small microenterprise test case. They have a neat challenge regarding their security, their personal data platform, and they require extra security measures for assessing geometric sequence and personal data from a bioinformatic platform software pipeline. And the second enterprise is a small medium enterprise, which the focus of this test case is to homogenize the approach to data protection and compliance across multiple portfolio business through a single platform. Regarding use cases, these two pilots are going to test Sentinel by 7 different use cases that we have already successfully implemented within the Sentinel platform. The first use case is that SME make a registration and profiling. The next is the registered SMEs are completing a self-assessment workflow. Furthermore, based on this workflow, they are accruing policy recommendation, and they can also consult the observatory knowledge base. A next use case that based on all this information and the recommendation, they can do policy informed monitoring. In a meanwhile, they can they can do incident reporting and sharing, and receiving also security notifications. So just very briefly about these use cases is that the first step for everyone, for any SME that want to test the Sentinel outcome on the platform, is that they register their company and fills in the related questionnaire, and system stores a profile of the company. After that, the user completes a self-assessment workflow that has been proposed by the Sentinel platform, of course, adjusted to the SME profile and their data provided. Then the SME representative fills in the company security profile and performs related self-assessment task indicated by the system. And after this step, the system returns back a tailor-made set of security policies. The system detects, in the meanwhile, the system detects a cybersecurity and personal data protection incidents that affects an SME, and send back an alert that the SME representative can attend it and take a note. Afterwards, the SME representative provides an update to the system concerning the status of implementation of the policies that have been provided based on the Sentinel recommendation engine. And in the meanwhile, the SME can anytime browse the Sentinel Observatory knowledge base and assess information about recently identified data or privacy breaches. And this knowledge base will continuously be updated and synchronized based on the external resources or some other information that can be any other user insert. The final use case is incident reporting and sharing. A security incident that has been detected and the SME wants to report. If SME wants to report, it can report and share it with appropriate response teams and or other open security data platforms. Having also presented the Sentinel use cases and its components and modules, this slide is just to simply present what is Sentinel and what are the main offerings of the Sentinel. So the first and most important part is to educate SMEs, and we want to assist SMEs to understand why individual data and this personal data need protection, and how generally these data processing activities can affect subject privacy. And in the meanwhile, to guide SMEs to understand what needs to be done in order to improve privacy and achieve compliance. The second pillar of Sentinel offerings is that it provides evidence-based GDPR compliance, and by providing one-to-one link between privacy requirements, measures or controls, their cyber assets, and also real-time monitoring. And the final most important pillar of the project that we want to achieve is that we provide automated compliance and recommendation. Through this automation, we want to cut costs, okay, for SMEs that and small enterprises that generally lack of the required resources in order to be GDPR compliant. And this we provide through GDPR compliance check, we are tailor-made recommendation, policies, in the meanwhile doing real-time monitoring, and cybersecurity and privacy compliance. I think this was my last slide, so thank you for your attention. If you need further information, of course, these are the links for contacting and getting more information about the Sentinel. I would like to tell you that the Sentinel, the MVT platform is open for everyone for testing and giving us feedback.
Okay, thank you, Cyranus.
Thank you so much. If there are any questions, please feel free to write now or.
Yeah, let's give it a few seconds.
Okay, of course, of course.
It's Alexander here from Trapeze. I have a little question. The services like My Sentinel, is it a web-based or you are going to make an application like mobile?
It's for the moment, yes. Thank you, Alexander, for your question. For the moment, it is web-based. Of course, there is no plan to make it as an app, but this is a good remark because generally apps can also increase the engagement of any user.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are other questions, maybe I could ask. I mean, okay, it's already a question that has been discussed many times over and over, but probably we could use your point of view on this and your experience from this project, meaning that, okay, the need for improvements in the cybersecurity and data protection for each company, it's acceptable, it's quite well known within our own circles in those projects, but what about SMEs? I mean, how ready and capable are SMEs to purchase services like that, platforms such as Sentinel, and I guess your plan, apart from, I mean, yeah, for increasing awareness within SMEs, includes any steps, specific steps?
Yeah, actually, yes, this is very not challenging, but user engagement, stakeholder engagement. Of course, this is a very important topic for all the project, as you mentioned. We are tackling this topic and trying to engage SMEs as much as we can from day one of the project. We have a dedicated task for this, which started month 1 and will last until month 36. What we do for the moment, we are trying to do special SME-centric workshop every 4 months, with our plenary meetings, trying to engage SMEs as much as we can. We have a dedicated task, which the purpose of this task is to engage SMEs through digital innovation hubs. Actually, in the middle of our project at the moment, we have approached around 40 digital innovation hubs, and we try to engage SMEs through these channels. Of course, we are not talking about the traditional way of engaging end users, but this is our approach to engage them as much as we can through organizing a special SME-centric workshop and trying just to talk interact with them. Okay, the level of their awareness, unfortunately, is not so high as we understood also from questionnaires that we are sharing with them, that they don't know. They know a very basic stuff about GDPR, in some cases only the name of GDPR, and this is very a challenging process for them to understand that yes, they are in a category, and yes, they are a company that need to be compliant with GDPR. Okay, they don't know about the how to say the generic information, the concepts, the terms are very strange for them. The articles of GDPR compliance are very weird for them. The terminology, it's very difficult. Yeah.
Yes, and I completely agree, because we had I wouldn't say issues, but in Cityscape as well. I mean, we had to make a listing of our tools and prove that they are GDPR compliant, and finding a framework required a lot of effort, mainly done by our partners in UPRC, but it requires a lot of consistency, and yes, this is our point of view as well. Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions. Thank you for the answer as well.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you to you too.
If no other questions, we could move on with Trapeze.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I'm trying to share my screen now. Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, hello. My name is Alexander Vasilchenko. I represent Penforce Belgium, which is the technical coordinator of the Trapeze project. So I will try to do a little bit of a different trajectory of presenting the project, and beginning with a little personal note. So basically, I was born in Ukraine, and believe me, before that slide was made, I was not I didn't know that these colors will become so popular, but I live in Belgium right now, so where Penforce is based. And these are my parents, who 3.5 years ago wanted to visit Belgium. And what they had to do, they had to fly from Ukraine to Belgium. And okay, as a normal citizens living outside of the European Union, my parents, they had to deal with a visa application. So for that, they had to, provide some financial information statement, get the insurance, buy their tickets, and all this was in more or less a digital form. And then there's some exchange of their private data, passport control. And of course, with the COVID pandemics, they also had to show their COVID passports, and thus they had to provide some special data, which is a medical data, their private medical data. And you would say, okay, that's all concerns people outside of the EU. We are a EU project, so probably that's not so many hurdles and data exchange which everyone would face as a European citizen living in Europe. Let's just take a simple and quite tedious task of a mobile banking we do pretty much every day or several times a day even. So once I wanted to check out at a supermarket, and I just pull up my phone. I wanted to pay through mobile phone. And what I get a pop-up message in my mobile application that I have to accept updated regulations of my bank before I could proceed to any action. So I basically had the only option is to accept before the continue button, allowing me to basically pay with my own money, will become active. And that was an inconvenient case, and okay, I have to accept that, and I was proposed a file PDF file within these updated regulations, which of course, if I had time and desire, I could check. And out of curiosity, you probably could, download each of your files, because I'm quite sure that pretty much everyone now and then gets into this situation. And if you try to look in this sort of file, it was a 47 pages of a refined legalese, which there was no way for me standing with my groceries to check and understand what has been changed, while I'm standing at the checkout. Of course, I think in all these regulations, what had to happen is that, in fact, there are probably a couple of pages which essentially, highlights the changes, but, there is no way to find them. And what about Article 12 of GDPR? So, which says that the controller shall take appropriate measures to provide any information and any communication relating to processing to the data subject in a concise, transparent, intelligible, and easy accessible form using a clear and plain language. I don't find that that document had a clear and plain language, and it was not suitable, and my service was interrupted from the bank by basically this document, which I had to accept and had no other choice than to accept it without understanding much. Would it be nice to have a, say, automated state machine which could compare the previous agreement with the bank with that agreement which just popped up at the shop, and that service could check the purposes of my personal data and my consent which I given to the bank with new requirements at real time, and just give me some simple bullets saying, okay, that actually my consents are not, let's say, objectivized or not challenged now. And that I would just have a simple tick boxes saying, okay, if you accept this, you're fine to go with the updated regulation. And this case is pretty much concerns every aspect of our life or a life of European citizens. No matter whether it is concerns your relationship with the governments where authoritative data is exchanged. We talked about the finance or reputation, your insurance, and everyday use of your personal account, social media, and so on, also involves a privacy-sensitive data exchange, right? And policies and your consent attached to that, and being dynamically changed as the regulation improves and some kind of user-level agreements evolve. And we understand that all this data, whether somebody comes from outside Europe, inside Europe, or basically among all these institutions and different aspects of our life, all this data is in fact interrelated. And we want to have, as citizens, and we have actually legal rights to have a good overview what data is stored where and for what purposes is used. And if the data is exchanged, we want to have it to be exchanged in a secure and transparent for us manner. And not to say about our basic GDPR rights about right to be informed, right to access, to rectify or erase the data, rights to restrict the processing or data portability, our actually fundamental rights to object, and also now emerging rights regarding automated decision making. Yeah, it has to be all very transparent. And this way, a TRAPPIST project was basically conceived. We started in September 2020, and TRAPPIST stands for Transparency, Privacy, and Security for European Citizens. So the EU contribution of the project, just a little bit of 5 million, with the coordination of 10 force in Belgium. And the project is basically will have a usual duration of 36 months. This is our last year. We still have a little bit more than half a year to go. So the consortium objectives is, we have 3 main consortium objectives, is to empower citizens and establish a more trustworthy data economy by leveraging existing and emerging data, control, and processing decentralization technologies. We want to raise citizens' awareness of personal data processing risks and cyber threats. And also we are basically adamant to pilot the Trapeze solution in 3 distinct personal data processing scenarios. Among the 13 partners, we have 3 industrial partners representing telecom industry with Deutsche Telekom, financial industry, CaixaBank Spain, and a Flemish government. And as you recall my previous slide, this is in fact the representing 3 different aspects of our life and our digital information life cycle, personal data life cycle. So how do we work on this aspect? So we have we are bringing 3 like main key holders, stakeholders within the data protection under one holistic security and privacy resilience framework called the Trapeze platform. We are bringing together the citizens. I talked a lot about the citizens, but we also, through the platform, enable the data processing authorities to control and to overlook how the controllers or processors of our personal data, which is represented here in blue, process the personal data of citizens. So on the right-hand side, you see the high-level architecture of our solution. And the flow for each user of our platform, we start with a data process, personal data inventory. So what we do, we have an AI-driven module which creates a data discovery and classification and identity correlation of all personal data stored at different controllers, and we linked it in one graph using linked data paradigm, and basically we semantify the data, your personal data, and apply to each data payload a sticky policy. I recall that in Sentinel there is also a policy as a concept also introduced, which I was pleasant to hear. So in our case, sticky policy, it's a kind of a gluing policy information to the payload data persistently. And it was originally proposed in the Prime project and also then further developed in the Special project. And therefore, you see on the right-hand side, Special compliance engine, which we now take on to develop further in the Trapeze platform in the Trapeze project. So, and this sticky policy is essentially a kind of they enable machine-readable expression and flexible management, or even some kind of difficult, elaborate data policies, which allow automated compliance checking. So it's refined, written with very small font legalese language, which then translated and the machinable readable text. And when we have that agreement translated with your notions of your data or links to your data with the sticky policies, we have a representation which is very fastly can be checked in the real-time data. So we basically discover data and the policy attached to them, the policy and the name or type of the data we store in the consent and policy database, which is realized in the Hyperledger Fabric. As today's speaker of Hire said, that there is also the same technology was used of the blockchain framework, Hyperledger Fabric, which is also a permission blockchain where the controllers processes your information with the sticky policies attached. They essentially lock the Hyperledger Fabric allows to lock all the processing data and the compliance engine conclusions within this policy database, which is append-only blockchain-based database. And also we have open security and privacy knowledge base proposed through the citizens portal on our website, trapezeproject.eu, where the events and like general information about privacy and security can be consulted by each stakeholder of the data protection. So what we have so far in the project, so we have established a strong web presence with the social media channels. We have a number of publications and dissemination activities. End of April, we are planning also a big trapeze event in the south of France. So if any of the projects or anyone is interested to participate, please reach out to me. So what we've done, we've created the compliance, privacy, and policy management framework, introducing reasoning algorithm and introducing sticky policies in JSON and OAuth2 format. Basically, everything is compatible to be recorded in Hyperledger Fabric. And also we have a web interface for the data processing authorities or processors, basically companies providing the services operating with our personal data. And we also have mobile application for citizens in the form of wallet ID. And on the website portal, we also can have help desk, which allows us to citizens to reach gamification assessment tool where they can train their skills on cybersecurity. And of course, there is a very detailed, I think it's already published, first version or even second version of the deliverable on the platform itself, with the quite detailed architecture, component specifications, and some external and internal APIs. So that's more or less concludes our project. Please feel free to reach out through our website or social media channels, or simply to email contact@trapeze-project.eu. Thank you very much. And now I'm open to questions.
Well, if not any other, to my understanding, there is a request on behalf of the Commission regarding standardization. Perhaps we can address this, of course, on the second part. Feel free to keep this question for the second part. But what is mainly the steps you're taking to contribute to artificial intelligence related standardization activities? But feel free to keep this for part 2 as well. It's up to you.
So basically, I think it's good to disclose it in part 2 or more in detail, but we have W3C consortium on board, who is in fact at the core of the standardization for basically representing the OAuth2 format for sticky policies, which I think there is a very good overlap with the Sentinel project to kind of collaborate on this on this format. And I really would like to elaborate this more on the second half of the today's webinar. Thank you. Very good question.
Okay, Alexander, thank you for your presentation as well. We could move on. So our last presentation for part 1 from Secant, Monica or Dimitris. Monica, okay.
Yeah, I will take the floor. So let me share my screen. If you confirm you can see it clearly.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Now we can, yes.
So hello everyone, and good morning. I'm Monica Caballero. I'm from Entity Data Spain, and I'm the project coordinator of the SECAN project. So SECAN is a project that it's aimed to strengthen the understanding of the risk, and it covers both the risk at the human but also at the technical level, and it aims to deliver an holistic framework for cybersecurity risk assessment in order to enhance the digital security, the privacy, and the personal data protection in complex ICT infrastructure, and its focus on the healthcare system. So it's coordinated by Entity Data with the support of Third as a technical coordinator, and Dimitris Caballeros is a technical manager that it's also in the call in order to support any more detailed or technical question. Let me start with some key facts. SECAN, it's a project that was submitted to the call of Cyber Threat Information Sharing and Analytics. It has a duration of 36 months, and it was kicked off last September 21, and it will last until August 24. It has more than 6.5 million euros of budget, with more than 5 million of European support. And in order to do that, it has a consortium of 20 partners from 10 different countries involving large ICT industries. We have also a great number of SMEs. We have research institutes and universities, healthcare organizations, non-profit organizations, and the Romanian CERT. If we want to start with the context and the main aim, well, the context is very similar, and I think it was the opening of the session today. All the changes the industrial sector are experiencing, and the new waves of threats and cyber threats that has come with all this interconnection and more especially in complex ICT infrastructures. SECAN is focused on the healthcare sector, and this is a constantly increasing data-driven ecosystem that has nowadays more interconnected devices, shared medical databases, and networks. We already heard about the presentation of another project in this sector too. So more or less the challenges are clear. It's obvious that even in the case of this sector, where that it's so centered, that deals with so sensitive data, there is it makes this sector more attractive and profitable to cyber attacks. And in this environment where different kind of stakeholders, just the patients, starting from the patients with the healthcare providers, but also by other third parties that need to ensure that meanwhile the supply chain, all the different steps are protected. The SECAN project thinks that there is a need to complement all the specific traditional platforms and the content measures to deal with attacks that the industry has developed. We need to complement that in order to understand better the risk, as I said, both at the human and technical level, to know what is happening. Especially the human factor, which is by default what we consider the weakest link, because it requires intensive cybersecurity education. And on the technical point, we think the risk needs to be understood and codified in ways that they can be monitored and prevented. So SECAN will aim to do that, delivering a framework for the cybersecurity risk assessment for enhancing the digital security, the privacy, and personal data protection in complex ICT infrastructures in healthcare. Thus, our main goal is to develop an automatic threat detection platform that it's capable of identifying threats and attacks and promote at the same time the situational security awareness as a priority and in the healthcare ecosystem. Second, rests four major pillars: digital security and privacy, data protection and accountability, collaborative threat intelligence, and cybersecurity awareness training. Those three, and through these pillars, SECAN will provide both its direct end users, which are the healthcare professionals and the ICT and security professionals, as well as the stakeholders in the industrial value chain, so in the healthcare value chain, improve cybersecurity readiness, increase privacy and data protection across the entire industrial chain, and reduce costs for managing risk and adopting digital security solutions, as well as for the security training. In turn, we aim to enable to make informed and context-aware decisions regarding cybersecurity, privacy, and data protection risk. These, the four pillars I just introduced of SECAN translate into different major components. We will have a threat intelligence model, a cybersecurity assessment companion, a trust and accountability model, and a security awareness training. All of them are depicted in this conceptual diagram. And all of these will be integrated in a virtualized platform that will be offered as a platform as a service. So in this diagram, we have at the bottom the supply chain with the provider network, or all the ICT network components. We have the health professionals and the patients that provide info to the devices or directly to the network, since the access to different kind of systems. And on the other hand, those are one of our users. And on the other hand, we have the existing cybersecurity infrastructure and risk management team in the different healthcare organizations. Then we have our platform with our models. We will have also different kind of models to act as an interface for the users to the different platform services, and an interoperability layer to connect the both worlds. So let me comment a little more on these different models and what are the solutions we are now developing. The first one I want to comment is a collaborative toolkit to allow the organization stakeholders and as well as European CERS and CSERS to create and exchange dynamic vulnerability databases and taxonomies for cyber attacks. In here, we have two different models. The first one is the threat intelligence model. We call it a team that supports, it's the one that supports the creation of these databases of vulnerabilities and taxonomies, and has three submodels. One of them for collecting the threat intelligence from the supply chain stakeholders. A second one that report this intelligence to CSERS and CSERS. And the third one that is responsible to build the dynamic taxonomies for the cyber attacks. The second model, as I introduced, is the interoperability layer that it's need to act as a middleware between the medical equipment and the network and the second platform, and also will include a central repository for the platform as a whole. The second main model is a dynamic and evidence-based security and privacy risk assessment framework that will deal with the cascading effects of cyber attacks and with propagated vulnerabilities. In here, we are developing the cybersecurity risk assessment companion that will facilitate the decision-making and effective timely response to the risks that are detected, so they can be minimized. So this is composed by of four models. The first one, the Connected Organization Cyber Risk Assessment Engine, using input from the threat intelligence model, will identify the potential vulnerabilities. It will also assess the propagation through the supply chain and will propose treatment solutions. And then we have three different models that perform a dynamic analysis. the human vulnerability assessment that tackles the social engineering attacks, the technical vulnerability and impact assessment that identifies and isolates the propagated vulnerabilities in the ecosystem, and the behavior analytics engine that will identify suspicious patterns in the behavior of an entity, a device in the network. The third component is a trust and accountability model that, based on a distributed ledger technology, will be responsible to verify the integrity of the data in the platform and the supply chain. It will also establish security of devices and track provenance and integrity of their data. And it will also track the correct access to the data. So it will verify the centralized device identities, record devices data transactions throughout the different stakeholders and supply chain to ensure that there are zero error deliveries and that everything it's compliance to standards and can be auditable, can be edited. This model will rely on a distributed ledger technology, and it will be it's the Iota Tango technology, and it will be supported by two different submodels. The digital identity management that adopts a self-sovereign identity concept and will enable, it will be the responsible to identify the devices, entities, and the users and that interact in the supply chain. And the other model that includes or compose this trust and accountability model is a privacy toolkit, that it will be the one that ensures integrity of the communications between the cybersecurity professionals and the platform, and will rely on advanced encryption technologies to mediate all this information flowing through this trust and accountability model and the platform. Finally, we will need to some applications to interface or to access for our different users to the platform services, and also to provide training. So let me start by the training. Regarding the training, we are developing two different kind of models. One more oriented to security professionals, and this is the organizational cyber range that will allow these professionals to be trained using a simulated representation of the supply chain and the ICT infrastructure they want to monitor and secure. And the other model is a security awareness training platform that it's more addressed to both health professionals, our patients, and any other kind of stakeholders involved in the supply chain, that will be complemented by a chatbot app in order to make the training more interactive and engaging for this kind of users that normally lack the time and the interest to train about the possible and the potential impact of their daily practices regarding cybersecurity, security and data privacy. And then to interact with the platform services, SECAN will develop also two different kind of interface. For the security professionals, we are building a dashboard that will provide access to the threat intelligence model and the cyber risk assessment companion. And then for the rest of the users, we are developing an end user application and will allow the non-expert end users to access the training platform and also data about information about how the data is being used. We will validate all these models and the platform as a whole in 4 different pilot use cases, all in the healthcare sector. The first use case, protecting the connected ambulance of the future, is aimed at validating the SECAN's ability to improve the transportation safety and ensure that there is a zero-error delivery of patients that are transported using time-constrained and emergency medical services. The second use case, the health data protection in healthcare supply. This is the third one. This third one is designed to validate the capabilities of SECAN to ensure the privacy, the data protection, and the accountability in all these cases when operational data is being exchanged within the healthcare supply chain. The second use case it's a cybersecurity for connected medical devices and mobile app, and it will serve to validate the SECAN's efficiency to deal with the cascading effects of cyber threats and also with propagated vulnerabilities in connected healthcare infrastructures, as well as in remote healthcare settings. And the last use case is focused on the training, and it will be used to validate all of our training models and the capabilities of these models to really deal with the needs of the different end users. So just to summarize what we think are the main innovations of the SECAN initiative, we are developing innovative risk analysis methodologies that can support both public and private organizations, as well as relevant stakeholders, to identify risks and vulnerabilities which might impact on the security and the privacy of the data in the supply chain. The models we are developing offer real-time information sharing capabilities that facilitates for cybersecurity professionals the handling and forecasting of security incidents, of complex attacks, and the propagated vulnerabilities. We are introducing a highly scalable directed acyclic graph-based ledger infrastructure that introduces innovations in the fields of trust and accountability, and enables also to protect in an end-to-end manner the integrity of sensitive and sensitive operational data. And at the end, as a whole, it allows for both technologically protecting the connected organizations, as well as empowering the users towards a better protection. So up to now, we are in month 16 of the project, if I'm not wrong. We have we have identified already the end user requirements and the technical requirements. We have also have complete a first version of the architecture of the platform, and we are now developing the first version of the different models. We are close to have a first version of all of them in 1-2 months, and we are now working on the planning to integrate them in a single platform, as well as defining and planning the pilot execution that will start early next year. So this is everything from what I wanted to explain you right now. I'm open to any kind of question.
Any questions up for this, or? Okay, so maybe, okay, so so the AC has recently funded a cybersecurity community initiative led by ECSO. so different communities around Europe are to support relevant networks. How important do you think is research and innovation activities such as second and for second to contribute to this?
For the recent community on cybersecurity, you mean?
Yeah, yes, the CCS and NCC network. Yes.
Well, I really think the results of the different research activities, in special on all the risk analysis, risk identification, could be really relevant. I was not just for SECAN, I was just hearing the other presentations today. We are all, most of us are working on technologies for the risk analysis, for identify and improve the vulnerabilities in different sectors. So I think the results of all of this research might be really relevant for this kind of association to share the different technologies, to share the different kind of risk and threats identified. So at least this is my point of view. I don't know, Dimitris, you're in the call, if you have any other aspect that you think can complement.
No. Hi, everyone. No, I totally agree with you.
Also, it could be good on all the training. I think the result of the validation on how the training is perceived and the level of, I mean, the level of awareness of security aspects and the impact of end users' activities when accessing interconnected systems. I really think it's also a very interesting input that this kind of association might have to know where to put the effort. Yes. I think it's a base for a very interesting discussion, at least for me.
Yes, probably. I mean, I don't know if you want to address this now. I mean, we are ahead of time anyway.
Yeah. Well, I was identifying, I was identifying during the webinar today some commonalities, some things where we are working on the same kind of topics, and I think this part that SECAN puts its focus in the part of understanding the risk that humans impose, since they are at the end the ones that are also accessing the systems. It's a key thing to understand. Sometimes we are developing a lot of technology and understanding is some of this risk posed by the users per se. I think it's an interesting topic.
Any other takes on this matter? Maybe we do have 24 minutes ahead, right? No, 15 minutes ahead right now. So there is time if you want to open a discussion. Nick, I don't know if you want to use this time to gather any questions for the panel that will follow.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So obviously this afternoon at 1:30 we have the panel discussion, and we have a really large panel of speakers, including some of the people who presented all morning, basically, this morning, and then other people as well from the consortium are joining. So we'll have lots of different perspectives from lots of different types of organizations as well. So, you know, we have, for example, a representative from the Austrian Standards Organization, and also large industry, and obviously from universities. So it'll be quite an interesting discussion. Now, there's a series of topics on the agenda. So one is GDPR and data handling. which is obviously a topic which is addressed by a number of the projects. Another is security assurance, approaches on the NIST directive and the NIST 2 directive, of course, as well. And then also, as we touched on previously, standardization and security labeling and how projects or what needs to be done for contributions for that. And interesting, related to that, there's a standardization booster service called HS Booster, which actually provides services to projects to help guide them to make sure that they are understanding the standards landscape and know which standards are available that they can use, and also to identify which standards they could actually contribute to. So the improvement of existing standards or the creation of new standards. And that's particularly important for any project working on artificial intelligence, where we expect the standardization request from the Commission on that topic. So based on that, I wanted to just open things up to the panelists, but also to the participants, to see if there were any questions that you would like addressed in this afternoon's panel. So we haven't seen so many questions in the Q&A. We had a couple earlier on, but I wondered if there was anything beyond those topics or in addition to those topics that perhaps could be addressed later on at 1:30. So first of all, let's ask our panelists, and if you're listening and you have any specific points you'd like picked up in the afternoon, then you can pop them in the chat or in the Q&A box. So any of the speakers online, and are there any questions which you think are important, or not questions, but topics we should specifically address in the afternoon?
Okay, I guess we can use the basis of the questions that we discussed internally as well. And I mean, you can use the break time if you want to add any questions on the chat, and if anyone feels like a topic should be included, and I guess we could move on.
Sounds good.
We could. Yeah, I mean, we could keep the break on 1 hour. Okay, 1:30 the scheduled time. So see you in an hour. And people can take this advantage of this time to add any additional questions that and the topics that we have in mind already to discuss to make it more open.
Excellent. And then all of the presentations are now online. So we'll put the link where you can download them in the chat in just a second.
Okay, so now we proceed with the second session. Julia Arteza will be coordinating on behalf of HRB. So no, probably we should start. Yeah, 43 participants, most people are back. So welcome to the second part of today's webinar, session 2. There will be an open discussion on a number of topics as introduced at the beginning of the webinar today. So those topics would be GDPR and data handling, security assurance, approach on the NIST directive per project, and last but not even close to least, the standardization and security labeling contribution, a very important part where all projects coincide, and the European Commission has already put a lot of focus on. So could start with a few questions already presenting and matters to debate. Starting with, what are the benefits of having standards in the field of cybersecurity labeling as well? I don't know, Carl, if you would like to make an introduction. And
Okay, so thank you very much, Jason, for raising this very interesting question. When we speak about cybersecurity, I think we all know that cybersecurity is a very sensitive issue affecting everybody. Today, with all the interconnected devices, with people being interconnected via internet, but even offline. So what is needed here is trust. And how to trust, especially, and to be confident how the issues of cybersecurity are solved and all the challenges are tackled. And here we need solutions elaborated by experts having the right expertise, coming together to answer these questions, how to ensure a sound cybersecurity. Which means that we raise awareness that there is an issue, that experts from the different stakeholder categories, so irrespective of small, medium-sized enterprises, big companies, consultancies, conformity assessment bodies, certification bodies, for instance, public authorities, especially those who are in charge of the relevant regulations, like the famous NISA regulation, but also representatives from civil society, like consumers, trade unions. They come together and elaborate a solution how sound cybersecurity could look like. And what I described to you is, it's all about standardization. Standardization is an open, transparent, inclusive, multi-stakeholder process, creating confidence and trust in an issue, especially in cybersecurity. So when you apply a standard for cybersecurity, then you can be confident that behind this standard, a group of people with the right expertise has solved the problem for you. And that means that you have a huge benefit when applying such standards, especially in the field of cybersecurity. And when we speak about labeling or certification, we have to realize that certification or labeling is not just about a stamp you put on your product, on your organization. It's all about also requirements, but perhaps we can speak about that also later. And let me also say that when we speak about standards, that these groups not only work on experiences, lessons learned from the past, but they also anticipate the challenges which are in front of you. So they already design a standard in a way that you can see, say, cybersecurity inside. So it's cybersecurity by design when you apply such standards. Yes. I hope you could hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, here at the bar.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I would be happy to follow the idea of standardization and security by design. The problem I see there is that we've kind of lost what design means. With the DevOps paradigm, we're actually developing, designing, developing, deploying, running at the same time, and I'm afraid that this confusion is making things complex, and that is compounded by the fact that we're also looking at complex systems. systems that are interconnected, and you have one part that changes, and it impacts the security of the rest. And even though you may have individual certifications and standards followed, and even standard protocols for the dialogue between the components, very often, in order to allow the deployment and to make it work, you degrade the security of components and protocols that were secure by design if they were deployed according to the specifications, quote unquote. And I think that's a reality that we have to face in the healthcare sector. That you constantly get new devices, you never really retire old ones. Upgrading is extremely hard. And the lifetime is well beyond what a computer lifetime is. So I would love to see that followed, but I'm afraid it's not sufficient. And also, one thing about certification is that you need to understand against what it is certified. Exactly. Because typically the medical devices were certified CE or certified by the Food and Drug Administration or by whatever authorization from the medical domain is allowing the device to be commercialized. But this has nothing to do with cybersecurity. However, for the medical professional, that's the certification that counts. So we have a lot of progress in front of us.
I just can take the floor and on what you just said. As part of the Cityscale project, we have to study the standardization issues and how it could be possible to define some labeling process in order to reach a certain level of confidence for a multimodal transport system. And we are going much beyond the security by design, and we take into account all the requirements, which are not only the design ones. And it's why we work on these issues by trying to identify some process in order to be able to define dedicate label applicable to transport system, public transport system. But we are not only focused on protection by design, which is for sure not sufficient to reach a good level of confidence on the security of the systems.
Can I start something, if I may? Sorry, Samir speaking. So to answer to you, Hervé, actually, the whole thing is that security most of the time is fully ad hoc. It fully depends on one very specific implementation, one specific operational environment. It depends on your users. It depends on your use cases. And the thing is, in such ad hoc domain, we really need some common grounds. And it might, most of the time, we're not able to provide a standardized architecture or standardized requirements, but still we need to find as many common grounds as we can. And based on those very generic common grounds, then step by step, try to work on more specific or more dedicated user-oriented, use cases-oriented, or architecture-oriented elements. But then those elements will be made, I would say, case by case, system by system. But we really need, on the top of that, more standardized approach and potentially certifications, which just demonstrate that some effort have been made to do something. And obviously, people have to be aware that it's not a full proof of security. They have to understand what has been certified exactly as you said, but still, it's better than nothing. And most of the time, it's the best that we can do. And if those certifications have been discussed or implemented or defined by experts that do have the competence to do that, it's much, much better than nothing. And it's much better than letting people do whatever they want. without providing any proof that what it's doing correct, which doesn't mean that they don't do correct things, but they just don't provide any proof of it, and it can be damaging in the cases where people actually do things wrong and don't know about it.
May I jump on the issue we have raised, Heather, about the CE marking? And sometimes people are, yes, let's say there's a mistake that the CE marking is not a certification. The CE marking is a kind of a self-declaration. Okay, there might be notified body involved, but the CE marking, the producer, the one who places the product in the EU internal market, put it on the product on its own responsibility. The CE marking has different meanings depending on the respective EU regulation or directive. And you have said that, for instance, cybersecurity might not be covered by the CE marking. That really depends on the EU regulation or directive. To give you one example, you might all know that there is the so-called machinery directive, which will now be upgraded in the machinery product regulation. And indeed, cybersecurity, and it deals mainly with the safety of machinery. But in fact, there are some standardization activities where cybersecurity will be included in the process of the CE marking. Because if you have an autonomous robot, for example, which falls under the machinery regulation, then it can be a subject to a cyber attack. And that with the cybersecurity, then you have an impact on the safety of the machinery. And with the international standards dealing with cybersecurity aspects on machinery, then you can cover also this. But again, as you have pointed out fully correctly, and I can't agree more, certification is as good as long as you know what are the requirements against the product the system is certified. That's completely true.
Yes, please, could I share my opinion regarding the previous question, the previous subject regarding the security by design? To my understanding, I think that the major problem is that we have not approached the term, right? This notion, the notion of cybersecurity, as we have approached, for example, the data rate. I mean, to approach it by means of producing a function, right, that can be used in order to pin the security by design in a system. Because nowadays, I mean, if I ask how much cybersecurity my own, let's say, system has, no one can answer, right? But on the other hand, if I ask how much data rate or latency has a system has, then the answer could be straightforward. So this I mean, this should be of major importance to be researched. I mean, to produce a mathematically precise result that can describe the cybersecurity, right, of a system, where this, let's say, mathematical approach could blend and could correlate all these certifications that you mentioned previously, sir, all the potential risks and the severity, you see. And one step forward is to link this kind of cybersecurity, let's say, dynamics with the data rate dynamics. So as the system can balance between, you know, the cybersecurity can maximize its cybersecurity, mathematically precise, its cybersecurity without any penalty to other system performances like the data rate, right, or the latencies. So I think that it is a major challenge because we are researching it privately on one hand, and to my understanding, to my opinion, this is of major importance for towards standardization, right? In order to produce mathematically precise solutions that can be pinned in the system by design. So this is the by design, you see what I'm saying? like we do in other let's say, attributes like data rates, latencies, etc. So yes, just wanted to say my opinion. Thank you.
Many people want to participate, so start with Yanis Ledakis. Yes.
Hi, I'm Yanis Ledakis. I'm representing the Puzzle project. We are working on the security aspects of this project, and I would like to contribute on this discussion also because I found very interesting this discussion about the complexity that is brought by the DevOps and the complex applications that we have to deal in reality, and how this leads to actual making shortcomings. You know, you have some designs, you have some decisions, but when you are trying to deploy, for example, on a Kubernetes cluster or a multi-cloud environment, these are security, it's difficult to manage. So that was let's say, the leading objective of our project. And I think just to put here another aspect on this, it's about how you can do things in the runtime. Yes, you are doing things on the design, and also in Puzzle, we are doing things in the design, and we're having integration of some tools that, like Trivi, that it's used to bring security issues that there are either in the code or even at the container images that are used. But for us, the most important is to be able to do things at the runtime and to allow the users in an effective way to do things dynamically. And for us, this is done through policies. And I believe that's one of the main findings we had, because it was a different approach that we had at the beginning. So trying to put some virtualized functions, but I have to say that this whole flow, we are able to manage using policies, a complete flow that allows enforcement of policies that at the end go through a risk assessment and even export some kind of blockchain threat intelligence that is related to the standards using strict standards. So it can be used as a kind of, let's say, certification among various companies.
Oh, okay, thank you, Yanis. Michalis Mirlis wants to.
Yeah, hi, Michalis. I'm here on behalf of the HARE project. Just a minor, let's say, comment on this, and it's aligned with what Yanis just said, is that what we observe is that the standardization and certification does not go hand to hand with the technical realization. And this is especially true in SMEs and small companies when they try to keep up in the, ever-going cybersecurity world. Obviously, you have to take some shortcuts in order to push your product to the market and try to somehow be up to date with the big companies out there. So what we observe, even not only through HARE, but this is not project specific, this is industry specific, is that even though standardization and certification exist, and there are a number of ISO standards, etc., in the outside world, most companies tend to be in a rush in order to keep up with the cybersecurity world, that they tend to not follow the security by design they themselves design. Because when you can design it, you can keep up and you can follow some standards, but when you go to the technical realization of this product, it's really, really difficult to be in compliance with all these standards out there. Because speaking from the technical side of you, because I'm mostly a technical guy, these standards are not strictly designed by technical guys. And we can see this from the GDPR. This is for instance, many companies, we speak about the GDPR, but most of the companies out there do not know how to technically realize the GDPR. And I think this is a common issue out there. That's all. Thank you.
If I may answer partly to this remark, as we said, systems are complex, but actually people most of the time just don't understand the cost of security assurance. They change their systems or their product on almost daily basis, when it takes several months, up to years, to verify security. Actually, security lies in the details of the system. You change a single byte in the code, and you can go from fully secure to fully unsecured. And to know if that is the case, you have to review all the changes, all the impact on all the interfaces, and it takes much longer than the time of before the next release. And actually, that's why security assurance is difficult for most people. That's why most people think that standards are not adapted to their system. But actually, what developers don't fully understand or don't fully grasp is that the way that we manage and we develop systems is just not compatible to security. Well, not security, sorry, but very high level of security, or high to very high level of security. And actually, we get to meet somewhere in between, and standards are a way to do that. And standards, yes, are not applicable in most cases, simply because people don't use their system in a way that ensure high level of security. And hopefully, we don't all need high levels of security. But in cases where you do, then you will have to slow things down, put much more effort in cybersecurity evaluation and certifications, and use those standards to benefit communities' expertise to define what is good practices and what might be good technical solutions. But usually you cannot go to the good technical solutions because those solutions evolve too rapidly. But we have to meet somewhere in between, and we need both sides to understand that problem. And I think it's not so obvious for many people.
Yes, indeed, and where to find that time when pushing forward on development while trying to reach deadlines. And I guess it's something, that we need to take care on the level of standards and meet in the middle, as you already said.
But Jason, Semi said something which is sometimes overlooked in the whole discussion, not here, but in other conferences. So when the software developer changes the code and so on, that brings me really back to all my concerns is that we sometimes oversee or neglect the human factor in cybersecurity. We really put on all this complexity of the system with the individual components, but neglect really the awareness of humans when they face cybersecurity, starting with the user, but also with the software developer, neglecting that there's a system and changing a little part, switching from one chip to the other. What are the impact on the overall system in terms of cybersecurity? That brings also to what we in Cityscale also address is the training of the people, especially the training of non-IT affiliated, of non-IT experts.
Yes, indeed. Thierry, you want to take on?
Yes, it's in line with what Sami said previously. At the beginning of the discussion, we speak about certification, and the idea and the observation we made is that usually when you certify the system, it's not coherent with the life cycle of the system that you have to certify, meaning that the system, especially in the transport world, are updated quite often because of the requirement, because of the regulation, and we need for transport now to go where decarbonate mobility in Europe, and it impact a lot the system and their target in order to make people leaving their personal car to the public transport, meaning that we will have to interconnect a lot of system with business which are different. And it's why, as part of Cityscape, we try to define a label process for cybersecurity of multimodal transport system in order to have to raise and to be able to label system and having a certain level of confidence that best practice has been undertaken to deploy this system as part of Europe. So it is quite complex, but it is the way we try to do that as part of the Cityscale project.
And what you say comes to why dedicated security labeling is required, for example, for the domain of multimodal transport. And
yes.
For every domain, I guess it has to be much industry specific after a point.
But I think the overall problematic is the same for all business and all the sector that need to handle cybersecurity issues. But the process could be different.
Yes, and I guess this is where also European projects assist on this effort, meaning that they are on their vast majority real-life deployments, actual systems being developed on the go on latest technologies. So having partners within consortiums that focus on this process of standardization and assurance methodologies, it's very important, since this is also a connection with the international bodies around this. I think it's what has been mentioned at the beginning, that okay, we are past security by design. Reality proves it in any way. It is a way of catching up, I guess, with reality, and it's a well done effort, I guess. That's my point. I don't know if you want to add anything here, or we can move to Alexander. Okay, Alexander, you're on.
Thank you. Well, at the Trapeze project, we are focused quite a bit on the an ordinary citizen. So I don't know, take my mother, for example. So I think if we compare a private individual or micro-organization, imagine a small startup or small company, I don't know, up to 5 people, which is not IT dependent. I think if they would struggle even to understand all the requirements of, let's say, best practices they have to apply for, like, you know, cybersecurity of their business or personal, you know, data protection, etc. So here, these are the two different walls. So here we just cannot enforce on a normal individual, ordinary individual adherence to that. We just can only train them to get the skills of some behavior practices, and that is achievable through, like Carl I think said before, through a repetitive training. So it's not even so. It's like doing exercises, physical exercises. You essentially you use it or you lose it. So, and I think that a lot of efforts, and also the Trapeze Citizens Portal, the knowledge base, we put a lot of efforts and try and actually into our users return every half a year, pass the training of what is GDPR, what data privacy, etc., because as our observation is that that's the time when basically the skills starts to disappear and has to always reinforce. They have to have this reinforced behavior, and we found that it's not possible for smaller businesses. They cannot just afford, neither in time or resources, to follow the security practices, they have to be as simple as possible, as least as possible options for the system, for the application, to make a wrong choice, let's say, by design. And reinforced learning, these are the utmost important things when it comes to micro enterprises or private individuals.
Alexander, in those terms, I mean, towards a more efficient measure, not only on a cybersecurity level, but mainly for protecting privacy. You mentioned about blockchain. I mean, how could this also be part of this effort? Maybe put your point of view on this.
Sure. So what we have in the QPS project, we empower citizens by the application called the Wallet ID. So, and the Wallet ID has, so what we do, we follow by example from the blockchain industry, where the private key handling is basically in the hands of every user. So that means that I have to remember your private key, which is a very big one. So what we've done, for an average Joe, what we've done, we use specific standard. It's called BIP32, for example, BIP39, which allow to create a mnemonic password. So by writing 12 words or 24 words on the piece of paper, which are normal words, it's not alphanumeric gibberish, capitalized or not capitalized, case sensitive. We can allow users, even though if their mobile device is stolen or lost, restore their private keys basically independently without going to a higher authority, right? So we actually have to realize that before the EIDAS and EID initiative is basically full running, so for authentication. And the second point is that each of the policies, so what we do, we have private information, private data with the sticky policy, which is assigned per processor per use. So I allow this bank use my KYC information for this and that purposes within the limited time. And these consents are represented in private keys, which are recorded in the blockchain. So, and the private and public keys, and the keys are verified and basically stored, the key handling stored on the as the log database. So this kind of another way of, rather than maintaining difficult certificate, etc. So we have a tree of keys which represent a tree of your consent sticked to your personal data. So this is decentralized approach and simplification, for example, as your personal credentials recovery and storage, like self-sovereign identity principle, if you wish.
Okay. Yes, we went a bit, I went a bit off topic here, but I wanted to catch the opportunity mainly to address that. And perhaps we could also see how the use of blockchain can get into the standardization process as well, how secure it can be. And while it's one part of the whole process, it is a trend, let's say, that is growing. So probably much attention is to be put on it in terms of standardization.
Can I say, Jason, you mentioned, or did I understand you correctly, blockchain should enter standardization?
It should be addressed as a means of securing decentralized. Yes, it's a bit harder than
we are already working on that, and in the very near future, also this EID, so electronic identifier of natural persons, will also be subject to standardization. Here we have I saw on the dawn, on the horizon, a standardization request from the European Commission coming for a standard, a European standard.
Perfect. And yes, this adds up to the conversation. We could stay a bit in terms of what we do in Cityscape. Maybe we could take some time mainly to mention security assurance, maybe towards a question towards Sami. There is a global system approach on security assistance, and how do we approach this, and how do we merge the outcomes of side projects to this Sami, and what are the benefits in general?
Well, actually, we already started to discuss that in the previous remarks. Again, the challenge is very ad hoc in most of the cases. In Cityscape, we have the specific case where we have very sensitive systems, since life could be at stake when you have cybersecurity issues. So in that case, we know that we need higher assurance levels, still knowing that the systems are very, very complex and are not always as mature as we like them to be. We can clearly see that in research projects where the applications are still under development, but still here we need a good confidence in the cybersecurity. And we can't spend years to verify that one single version of the global system is very secure. So we had to find the best way, the most efficient way to provide the highest assurance level. And for that, we had to define an ad hoc approach to make sure that the most sensitive components are secured, and in the same time, watch perpetually the system to verify that all the non-evaluated components still perform the correct security, still have the correct security performance. So we worked on this specific trade-off for this very specific kind of system, and we had to make compromise, and we had to accept that we cannot reach very high assurance level, well, or at least the highest assurance level possible, because of the complexity of the system, because of the average maturity of those systems, and also the knowledge of the people using those systems, and so on. So I wouldn't be I know that some very strong affirmations have been made regarding cybersecurity, but actually all those are very context dependent. Formal proofs for some systems are possible. In our case, I don't think so, because they are far too complex, but for much smaller system, it's possible. Security by design, again, in some cases, it's possible, but in such multimodal systems where systems are owned by different partners, there are compositions of different software, hardwares made by many different companies, with also very, very different lifetimes, well, for versions, for new updates, and so on. So in our case, those were not possible, but we still managed to find something that is acceptable, providing a good enough assurance for such complex systems. But again, we had to find something adapted to the various constraints of those systems. And one of the things that we had to do was to manage to provide a global assurance, knowing that we could not test every single component of the system. So we tried to provide a way to identify which were the most critical elements, identify the proper amount of effort that we could do on those specific elements to harden them and guarantee their security, and associate that with surveillance systems, IDS, IPS, SIEM, to cover all the other potential issues that we did not manage to guarantee by test or by assurance.
Okay, thank you, Sami. We could continue on a bit. Yes, another question is about hire. How could hire contribute to the overall cybersecurity of a healthcare organization? A bit moving on the topic, but yes.
Okay, I can probably start and then Michalis will complete. The way we approach the security of healthcare organization is that we are interested in the security of the infrastructure. So all the devices, be it IT, be it medical, that constitute the information system in the broadest sense of the term of a healthcare organization. And that needs to be secure, but it's not sufficient. This infrastructure is only useful if it can be, if it can host data securely. And so that's the reason why we have this privacy-aware framework, which aims at securing the data independently of the layers below. Clearly, the privacy-aware framework is more an IT thing than an IoT thing, if I may make the distinction. But nevertheless, it's looking at in both directions. So there are probably holes in the things we monitor, but those holes are not, I mean, they are probably due to either economic limitation or limitation due to the number of people that you can put to monitor such a system, which are relatively classic and are not specific to healthcare. Other limitations, I think, are inherent to the nature of healthcare. And as I mentioned this morning, I think it's really about communications. It's very hard to segment such an environment in zones without impeding the delivery of care, which is the principal goal of doctors and nurses and so on. And also, it's very hard to delimit a perimeter because you have patients, you have families, you have people who are bringing their own devices. Some of them are medically related, some of them are not. And all of this makes it for a very complex picture. And the thing is, people in general, and I think about doctors, about medical staff, about external actors, about patients, they expect all of this to work practically. And any barrier that you put that increases cybersecurity creates a usage issue. And so some of the things that we do on the privacy-aware framework, there is a need for specialists who understand the domain of data privacy to code some of the rules. And there's what we do is probably just a first implementation, but there will be a need for specialists who can transform legal text into code. And I don't think we are there yet. Michalis, do you want to complete?
No, well, first of all, I agree with all of them. Just a minor addition to this is that obviously we can do whatever we do in the HARE project with, we are a bit, let's put it, happy that we have partners from the industry, that we are utilizing state-of-the-art tools like Bitdefender's solution to scan the system to identify security issues, etc., etc. But on the other hand, we are also trying to help not only the IT or the super security expert of the healthcare organization, but we are also trying to create a risk assessment methodology, let's say, actually a risk assessment score, which is called RAMA, that would depict the current cybersecurity status of the organization in a more high-level way, so that maybe the director or the simple user with no cybersecurity expertise can understand where they stand in terms of cybersecurity. So this is also one of the most important things that we are trying to do in here.
Yes, it's quite a challenging field. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Can I give a very quick comment about what Xenover said about the specialist who is able to transfer legal text into code? We have the data privacy vocabulary, which is maintained by one of our partners, and other partners are contributing to this, which is meant to do exactly this. I can maybe paste the link of W3C consortium, where together with Cini in Italian University and one of the data protection authority agency, exactly what we are doing. So, so the legal requirements of general data protection rules, which also have a big impact on the medical application, are translated then into OAuth2, and now we can even translate into the JSON format. So the vocabulary and policies, which probably a good point for discussion. If you wish, we can even have a separate call on that with our consortium members.
Yes, indeed, a very useful resource, and yes, perhaps we can catch up on this on a secondary call. Yes, thank you, Alexander. Okay, continuing a bit with a question towards the Puzzle project, how the Puzzle framework contributes, one, to standards, and two, generally on European governance policies, regulations, norms.
Yes, hi again. I will start from the standards. So in general, we have two things in the standards part. So the one is using as much as possible standards and standardized frameworks as much as possible. And this includes container-related, let's say, standards like CNI, or even to export the data like sticks format. But we are also contributing in some of the working groups. This is relevant mainly to the TPM part. So because we are contributing to the Trusted Computing Group, the TCG. It's one of the working groups that UBTech is participating actively and providing feedback. And also we are collaborating a bit with 5G PPP, and also we have we are in an open, let's say, we are planning to communicate with a cloud native foundation, because what we are doing with the integration of eBPF and the usage of Cilium in the Kubernetes part, it's something that it's a very hot topic, and we are providing some advancements that it would be, I think, very useful to share back in the community. The final standardization that we are collaborating is also it's related to the blockchain and technologies relevant to distributed ledgers. It's ISO 307, ISO TC 307. So we are providing there, in general, we are working on the concept of the verifiable credentials, but we are also participating there with discussions relevant to what we have done in the scope of Puzzle. As I said before, with the adoption of sticks format for storing in the blockchain threads that are there shared among various stakeholders. Now, on the part of general how we are helping on regulations, of course, we are relevant to GDPR regulations, that has been discussed, but I think that what it's mostly our focus, because we are working a lot on the network and information sharing part, so the NIST directive is what we are most relevant, and we are fully in line with what NIST is saying. NIST is saying in articles 9 and 10, for example, about information sharing, about security requirements, and also I think also in the article 14, yes, about security requirements. Yes, that's it, I would say, from my part and from past perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just to add one last point. One additional standard that we are using, it's of course CVS, that we are using CVS 2.1 and 3.1 CVSS, and also the Mitre relevant attacks. So we are using attack Mitre in order to make some mapping of attacks, and also how we can mitigate this. So yes, this is an additional standard related work that we were using.
Okay, thank you, Yanis. Time is a bit pressing, so probably yes, we could move to the next question. So good question towards second. So we have discussed about how there should be an alignment between the production environment and the security requirements. So, however, the production environment is greatly dependent on requirements. So, how do you resolve conflicting security requirements from stakeholders of different expertise, and how can security requirements guide and refine the development process of cybersecurity services? It's much linked to the previous conversation as well. Orestes, yes, probably. We cannot hear you. I don't know, Mr. Orestes Mavropoulos, if you want, or someone from Secant want to address this. Okay.
Hi everyone. So no, sorry, this is Dimitris. I was waiting if Orestes will be able to actually come back to us, or any other from the panelists. So regarding your question for the security requirements in the operational environment, actually I agree with you that is a very complex aspect, due to the fact that production operational environment depends also on the organization that is actually doing the production, and then not only the operational environment that it will end up. What I mean about that, the security is an holistic approach, and we need to take it under consideration from the early stages of creating something up until the end that it will go to the operational, because even based on the requirements of not only end user but also security requirements that might be outside of the end user itself, we need to know. Orestes, unfortunately we cannot hear you. Orestes is typing on the chat. So yes, Orestes, do you want to try and log out and try again? I don't know if you can hear us. Okay, so until Orestes joins, I will try to respond in more generic way. So basically, at least in my opinion, we need to undertake also aspects from the beginning. So each organization has different policies in terms of development. So all of developers and companies, R&D organizations need to actually begin investing in secure development, which is very difficult aspect, actually, as we have seen in practice, even before the requirements of end users. Yes, Orestes.
Perfect.
Just to finish up and give the pass to Orestes, is that at least in my opinion, we need to start from the early stages, have even from training aspects, secure development before we end up even going to receive the end user requirements, and have a very good level of security regardless of the operational environment. And upon that layer, build the security requirements ad hoc based on each end user and the operational environment of each end user. Thank you. Orestes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Can you also see me?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, so everything is working. That was fun because I was talking alone before. Now, thanks, Dimitri, for stepping in. Now, this is an interesting question because it's not very easy to answer it, and we can't give a clear answer. Because when we have different type of stakeholders, we usually have different types of requirements that sometimes they're more or less the same, but other times they're extremely conflicting. And for example, for the case of SECAN, we have two different types of stakeholders, which are two main categories. So one category is people that are trying to secure a healthcare facility. So there are people that are cybersecurity engineers or IT professionals that are very well versed in using cybersecurity software. So they usually have a very strict and very specific idea about what they need in order to protect a facility. And on the other hand, we have people that are working in the healthcare facility. So this could be doctors, they could be nurses, there could be other types of people that are involved in the healthcare process, but they're not experts in the cybersecurity aspects. And what we have is that we usually have two different types of applications and two different types of, let's say, requirements that come into play. And a lot of times people that are experts and enjoy data, they usually prefer to have a large number of options in order to do something. So when something is happening, they need to have a very detailed understanding of what actually happened in order to make a decision. And then we have other people that usually want something like a button, you know, that you click it and it says that you're protected, and it has like a green status that's saying all systems are go. So we have those two different types of people. And usually what we try to do is to find some sort of compromise between the experts that need a lot of information and they have the knowledge to actually use that information for the best of the facility, and also provide, let's say, a layer of security that comes by default. So no matter what you do, always something is protected. I don't know if there are like any other questions that we can expand the discussion.
Well, we are a bit running out of time, but I think there is alignment in what you say, yes, with adding up to the conversation that we had before, and yeah, catching up also with what the colleague from a higher project mentioned as well regarding their own field, of course, of expertise. So if there are no other questions, we could make a brief summary. We are almost 1 minute off.
Yeah.
But it was a very fruitful conversation. It mainly focused on standards, which seems to be, I wouldn't say a pain, but maybe something to look up to as a future issue to resolve maybe in all projects. So there are a lot of effort. There is a lot of effort from each project to adhere to this and add up to this conversation. A lot of different bodies mainly contributing to this. The connection between what the standardization bodies eventually produce as a result and what the actual production produces as a result has been highlighted as well, and the shortcomings on that and the need for further training, not only for the specialized personnel, such as developers or operators of security systems, but also the non-expert personnel, non-expert meaning in terms of cybersecurity, like doctors, like passengers. So in those terms, training sessions in a more organized manner can be the answer, and along with coordination between standardization bodies and production environments on a very high level. And of course, within this whole discussion, the security assurance, which is a very important part, which is actually the final estimation on with the work already done. So I don't know if anyone wants to add something up, or we could wrap it up here. Okay, thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I hope you have we had a great time and a fruitful discussion took place, and we will keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.